Kyle Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the chaos around him. The new Houston spaceport was busier than ever on this Tuesday morning. Ships were taking off and landing every few minutes. Passengers rushed through the terminal, with their bags, trying to catch their flights to distant planets. Kyle had been working as the airport operations manager for 3 years now. He loved his job, even when it got stressful. Today was one of those days. The morning rush was in, full swing, and everything had to run perfectly. "Kyle, we have a problem," said Amy Foster, one of his gate agents. She hurried over to his desk with a worried look on her face. "The Starwind Express is ready to leave, but we're still missing 2 passengers." Kyle checked his watch. It was 10:07 in the morning. The boarding gate for the luxury ship had closed at 10 sharp. Company rules were clear about this, no exceptions. "Did they check in on time?" Kyle asked. "Yes, both passengers checked in early this morning, but they haven't shown up at the gate yet," Amy replied. Kyle nodded. This happens sometimes. People missed their flights for all sorts of reasons. Traffic, family emergencies, or they simply forgot about the time. But the rules were the rules. Safety came first, and keeping schedules was part of that safety. "We can't hold the ship," Kyle said firmly. "The other 200 passengers are already on board. We need to stay on schedule." Just then a woman came running toward the gate. She was pulling a small suitcase behind her and looked very tired. Her business suit was wrinkled, and she seemed like she had been traveling for hours. "Wait, please wait," she called out. "I'm here for the Starwind Express." Kyle looked at her and then at his watch again. It was now 10:08. The woman was clearly too late. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Kyle said in a polite but firm voice. "The boarding gate closed 8 minutes ago. You've missed your flight." The woman stopped in front of him, breathing hard. "Please, I know I'm late, but I just got here. There was terrible traffic and my taxi broke down. I really need to be on this ship." Kyle could see she was upset, but he had heard similar stories many times before. "I understand your situation, but we have strict rules about boarding times. The ship is already preparing to leave." "But I have very important business on Proxima Centauri," the woman insisted. "People are waiting for me there. Can't you make just one exception?" Kyle shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. It wouldn't be fair to the other passengers, who arrived on time. Plus, once the boarding process is complete, we can't reopen it for safety reasons." The woman looked frustrated. "What's your name?" she asked. "Kyle Morrison, operations manager," he replied calmly. "Well, Mr. Morrison, I think you're making a big mistake," she said. "This is really important." Kyle had dealt with angry passengers before. He understood their frustration, but he also knew that rules existed for good reasons. If he started making exceptions for one person, where would it end? "I truly am sorry," Kyle said. "The next Starwind Express to Proxima leaves in 3 days. I can help you book a seat on that flight if you'd like." The woman stared at him for a moment. She seemed to be thinking about something. Then she took a deep breath and said, "Fine. I guess I have no choice. But this is very disappointing." "I understand," Kyle said. "Let me call our booking office to help you with the next flight." As Kyle picked up his phone, Tony Rivera, the security chief, walked over. He had been watching the conversation from nearby. "Everything okay here?" Tony asked. "Yes, just a passenger who missed her boarding time," Kyle explained. "She's a bit upset, but we're handling it." Tony nodded and looked at the woman. "Ma'am, I can escort you to the booking office if you need help finding it." The woman looked at both men and then said, "That won't be necessary, I can find it myself." She started to walk away, then turned back. "By the way, what's the name of this airline company?" "Stellar Transport Corporation," Kyle replied. "They own most of the luxury ships that run between Earth and the colonies." "I see," the woman said quietly. "And who do you report to, Mr. Morrison?" Kyle found the question a bit strange, but he answered anyway. "My direct supervisor is Regional Manager Jake Palmer. Above him is the District Director, and above that is the corporate headquarters on Earth." The woman nodded slowly. "And at the very top?" "Well, that would be the Interstellar Transportation Authority. They regulate all space travel between planets. But I've never dealt with them directly. They're way above my level. Interesting, the woman said. She seemed to be writing something down in a small notebook. Thank you for your time, Mr. Morrison. As she walked away, Kyle felt a bit puzzled. Most angry passengers just complained and left. This woman seemed different. She was asking questions like she was gathering information for something. That was weird, Tony said, watching her leave. Yeah, a little, Kyle agreed. But we get all types here. Some people just don't understand how the system works. Amy Foster came back over to them. The Starwind Express is ready for departure. All passengers are on board. Good, Kyle said. Let's get them moving. We have 6 more ships leaving in the next 2 hours. As the day went on, Kyle forgot about the woman. He was too busy managing the constant flow of passengers and ships. The spaceport never slept, and neither did he, it seemed. Around lunchtime, Kyle was reviewing the morning's reports when his assistant, Maria Santos, brought him a cup of coffee. Busy morning? She asked. The usual, Kyle replied. Had to turn away a late passenger on the Starwind Express. She wasn't happy about it. You did the right thing, Maria said. Rules are rules. If we start making exceptions, things would get out of control fast. Kyle nodded. That's what I told her. But she seemed to think her business was more important than everyone else's. They always do, Maria laughed. Remember that guy last month who claimed he was late because he was meeting with the president? People will say anything. Kyle smiled. True, but we have to treat everyone fairly. That's what keeps this place running smoothly. Little did Kyle know that the woman he had turned away was not just any passenger. Her name was Lisa Barnes, but her full name was Dr. Elizabeth Barnes. She was the newly appointed director of the Interstellar Transportation Authority, the very organization that Kyle had mentioned as being way above his level. Lisa had been traveling for 2 days to reach Earth, coming from a conference on Mars. She had planned to arrive at the spaceport early, but unexpected delays had made her late. Now she was stuck on Earth for 3 days waiting for the next flight to Proxima Centauri. But as she sat in the airport cafe, drinking coffee and watching the busy terminal, Lisa realized that maybe this delay wasn't such a bad thing after all. She had just witnessed something that gave her a lot to think about. Kyle Morrison had no idea that his decision to follow the rules, even when it was difficult, was about to change his life forever. Lisa Barnes sat in her hotel room that evening, looking out at the new Houston spaceport through her window. The lights from the landing pads created colorful patterns in the darkness. Ships continued to arrive and depart even at this late hour. She had checked into the Airport Plaza Hotel under the name Lisa Barnes, which was what most people called her anyway. Very few people knew she was actually Dr. Elizabeth Barnes, the new director of the Interstellar Transportation Authority. She liked to keep things simple when she traveled. Lisa opened her laptop and started typing a report about what had happened that morning. But as she wrote, she realized she wanted to know more about Kyle Morrison and how the spaceport really worked. Being stuck here for 3 days might actually be helpful. The next morning, Lisa went back to the spaceport early. She bought a cup of coffee and found a seat in the main waiting area where she could watch everything that happened. She wanted to see how Kyle and his team handled their daily work. Around 8 in the morning, she spotted Kyle walking quickly through the terminal. He was carrying a tablet and talking to someone on his headset. Even from far away, Lisa could see he looked busy and focused. Good morning, everyone, Kyle said as he reached the central operations desk. What's our status? Today, Amy Foster, the gate agent from yesterday, came over with a stack of papers. We have 12 departures scheduled before noon. The morning flights to Alpha Centauri and Kepler are both full. And we just got word that the cargo ship from Titan is running 2 hours behind schedule. Kyle nodded and started checking his tablet. Any passenger issues so far? Just the usual, said Tony Rivera, the security chief. A few people trying to bring oversized luggage on board. Maria is handling the baggage problems. Lisa watched as Kyle quickly went through his checklist. He seemed to know exactly what needed to be done and when. She could tell he cared about his job and took it seriously. Around 9 o'clock, an announcement came over the speakers. Attention passengers on Flight 447 to Wolf 359. We are experiencing a technical delay. Please remain in the waiting area for updates. Lisa saw Kyle immediately walk over to Gate 12, where a crowd of unhappy passengers was starting to gather. She got up and moved closer so she could hear what was happening. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kyle said in a loud, clear voice, "I know you're concerned about the delay. Let me explain what's happening." A man in the crowd shouted, "We've been waiting here for an hour. When are we going to leave?" Kyle remained calm. "The ship's computer system is showing a small error in the navigation program. Our technical team is fixing it now. This is a safety check and we won't allow the ship to leave until everything is perfect." "But I have a business meeting on Wolf 359 tomorrow morning," complained a woman near the front. "I understand your concern," Kyle replied. "But passenger safety is our top priority. Would you rather arrive a few hours late or not arrive at all?" The crowd grew quiet. Lisa could see that Kyle's honest explanation had calmed most people down. He wasn't making excuses or lying to them. He was treating them like adults who could understand the situation. "How long will it take?" asked an elderly man. "The repair should be finished within the next 30 minutes, Kyle said. "If it takes longer, we'll provide meal vouchers for everyone. And if the delay goes past 2 hours, we'll arrange hotel rooms for those who need them." Lisa was impressed. Kyle wasn't just following rules blindly. He was thinking about what the passengers needed and trying to take care of them. After the crowd dispersed, Lisa watched Kyle talk quietly with his team. She couldn't hear everything, but she could see he was giving clear instructions and making sure everyone knew what to do. "Amy, please check with the technical crew every 15 minutes and give me updates," Kyle said. "Tony, make sure we have enough seating for everyone if they need to wait longer. Maria, call the food court and see if they can prepare extra sandwiches just in case." As the morning continued, Lisa moved around the terminal, observing different parts of the operation. She sat near the information desk and listened to how the staff answered questions. She watched how the security team handled problems. She even spent time near the maintenance areas to see how the technical work was done. What she discovered surprised her. Despite Kyle's strict rule about boarding times, his team was actually very helpful and kind to passengers. They went out of their way to solve problems and make people comfortable. Around 11 o'clock, Lisa saw a family with 3 small children having trouble at the security checkpoint. One of their bags was too big and they didn't know what to do. Kyle happened to be walking by and stopped to help. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked the security officer. "This bag is over the size limit," the officer explained. "They need to either check it or repack it." Kyle looked at the family. The parents looked tired and the children were getting cranky. "How long until your flight?" he asked them. 20 minutes, the father said nervously. "We can't miss this flight. We're moving to New Mars and all our belongings are already on their way." Kyle thought for a moment. Then he called over to Maria Santos. "Maria, can you help this family repack their bag quickly and get them priority boarding so they don't have to wait in line with the children?" "Of course," Maria said with a smile. She quickly helped the family reorganize their luggage and personally escorted them to their gate. Lisa watched the whole thing with interest. Yesterday, Kyle had refused to bend the rules for her. But today, he was finding ways to help this family, within the rules. The difference was that the family had arrived on time and just needed assistance, while Lisa had been genuinely late. She began to understand that Kyle wasn't mean or unreasonable. He was trying to balance being fair to everyone while keeping the spaceport running safely and on time. During lunch, Lisa decided to eat at the same cafe where many of the spaceport employees went. She sat at a table near a group of Kyle's team members and listened to their conversation. "Kyle's been working here longer than any of us," Amy was saying. "He really knows this place inside and out." "Remember last year when that big storm hit?" asked Tony. "Kyle stayed here for 3 straight days making sure everyone was safe and all the stranded passengers had places to sleep. He used his own credit card to buy food for people when the company approval was delayed," added Maria. "He never even asked to get paid back." Lisa found this very interesting. Kyle seemed to be the kind of person who put people first, even when it cost him, personally. As the afternoon went on, Lisa continued her quiet investigation. She watched Kyle handle two more difficult situations. First, an angry passenger who had missed his connection due to his own mistake. Kyle patiently explained the options and helped book a new flight. Second, a technical problem with one of the boarding gates that required moving 150 passengers to a different area. In both cases, Kyle remained calm and focused on solving the problem rather than blaming anyone or getting upset. By the end of the day, Lisa had learned a lot about Kyle Morrison and his team. They worked hard, cared about passengers, and tried to do the right thing even when it was difficult. But she had also noticed some problems that weren't Kyle's fault. The computer systems looked old and slow. Some of the equipment needed repairs. And she could see that the staff was working longer hours than they should have to. As Lisa returned to her hotel that evening, she realized that Kyle's strict rule following might actually be necessary. With outdated systems and not enough resources, following safety rules carefully was probably the only way to keep things running smoothly. She was starting to think that her delay might turn out to be the best thing that could have happened. She was learning things about this spaceport that she never would have discovered in a normal inspection visit. Tomorrow, she decided, she would dig deeper and try to understand what challenges Kyle and his team were really facing. On her second day at the spaceport, Lisa decided to explore areas that regular passengers never saw. She wanted to understand how the place really worked behind the scenes. She started by walking around the maintenance areas early in the morning. Most people were still asleep, but the spaceport never stopped working. There were always ships coming and going, and someone had to keep everything running. Near the cargo loading area, Lisa met a man in work clothes who was fixing a broken conveyor belt. His name tag said, Carlos Ruiz, Maintenance. "Excuse me," Lisa said. "I'm new here and a bit lost. Could you tell me how to get to the main terminal?" Carlos looked up from his work and smiled. "Sure, no problem, but you're pretty early. Most of the shops don't open for another hour." "I couldn't sleep," Lisa said. "I'm waiting for a flight and I thought I'd explore a bit. This place is bigger than I expected." "It's huge," Carlos agreed. "I've been working here for 8 years and I still discover new areas sometimes." He wiped his hands on a rag and stood up. "Are you one of those corporate inspectors? We heard someone might be coming around." Lisa's heart skipped a beat, but she tried to look calm. "Corporate inspector?" "No, I'm just a passenger. Why do you ask?" "Oh, it's just that you seem really interested in how things work here," Carlos said. "Most passengers just want to get to their gates and leave. But you're asking questions and looking around like you're studying the place." "I guess I'm just curious," Lisa said with a smile. "I work in transportation back home, so I find this stuff interesting." Carlos nodded. "Cool. Well, if you want to see how things really work, I can show you around a bit. But don't tell anyone I'm taking time away from my repairs." Lisa followed. Carlos through parts of the spaceport she had never seen before. He showed her the massive computer room that controlled all the flight schedules, the huge kitchens that prepared food for the ships, and the complex baggage handling system. "This place is amazing," Lisa said. "It must take a lot of people to keep it running." "It does," Carlos said. "But we're always short-staffed. The company keeps cutting jobs to save money, but the work doesn't go away. We just have to do more with fewer people." As they walked, Carlos told Lisa about the daily challenges he and his coworkers faced. The equipment was getting old and broke, down frequently. They didn't have enough spare parts, and they were expected to work overtime almost every day. "What about your managers?" Lisa asked. "Do they understand these problems?" "Some do, some don't," Carlos said. "Kyle Morrison is good. He actually listens to us and tries to get us what we need. But the people above him in the company, they just care about making money." They stopped at a small break room where several maintenance workers were having coffee before starting their shifts. Carlos introduced Lisa as a passenger who was interested in how the spaceport worked. "You picked an interesting time to visit," said a woman named Linda. "We're having more problems than usual this week." "What kind of problems?" Lisa asked. "The main computer system crashed twice yesterday," Linda explained. "And 3 of our cargo handling machines are broken. We're fixing them with parts from other broken machines because the company won't buy new ones." "That sounds dangerous," Lisa said. It is, agreed another worker named Pete. But what choice do we have? Kyle keeps sending reports to headquarters asking for better equipment, but they always say there's no money in the budget. Lisa spent the next hour listening to the workers talk about their jobs. She learned that they all respected Kyle because he fought for them with the company management. But they also felt frustrated because nothing ever seemed to change. Kyle's a good guy, Carlos said as he walked Lisa back toward the main terminal. He works harder than anyone else here. Sometimes I see him here at midnight dealing with emergencies, and then he's back at 6 in the morning for the next shift. Doesn't he have assistants to help him? Lisa asked. He used to have 3 assistant managers, Carlos replied. But the company eliminated those positions last year to save money. Now Kyle does the work of 4 people. Lisa thanked Carlos for the tour and made her way to the passenger areas. Her mind was racing with everything she had learned. The problems at the spaceport were much bigger than she had realized. She found a quiet corner in the main terminal and started making notes on her phone. The maintenance workers had painted a picture of a spaceport that was barely holding together. Old equipment, too few workers, and a company that cared more about profits than keeping things running properly. Around noon, Lisa decided to get lunch at the employee cafeteria instead of the passenger restaurants. She wanted to hear more about what life was like for the people who worked here. She sat at a table near a group of gate agents and listened to their conversation. They were talking about the new work schedules that had just been announced. "I can't believe they're making us work 10-hour shifts now," said one agent. "How are we supposed to give good service to passengers when we're exhausted?" "At least you're not working weekends," replied another. "They told me I have to work every Saturday for the next 3 months." Lisa noticed that these workers also spoke positively about Kyle. They said he had fought against the new schedules and had even offered to work extra hours himself to reduce their workload. "Kyle tried to tell the district manager that we needed more staff," one agent said. "But they just told him to make it work with what we have." After lunch, Lisa walked through the administrative areas of the spaceport. She found Kyle's office and saw him through the glass window talking on the phone. He looked tired and stressed. There were stacks of papers on his desk and multiple computer screens showing different information. Lisa could hear part of his conversation through the door. "I understand you need to control cost," Kyle was saying. "But we can't keep cutting staff and expect the same level of service. The passengers are starting to complain and I'm worried about safety issues." There was a long pause while Kyle listened to whoever was on the other end of the call. "Yes, sir, I understand." Kyle continued. "But I need you to understand that my team is already working at maximum capacity. We had 2 people call in sick yesterday and I had to cover both their shifts myself." Another pause. "I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee we won't have problems if we keep operating like this," Kyle said. "I'm sending you a detailed report about our staffing needs. I hope you'll consider it seriously." Lisa moved away from the door before Kyle could see her. She was starting to understand why he had been so strict about the boarding rules. With everything falling apart around him, following the rules exactly was probably the only way to maintain any order at all. Later that afternoon, Lisa witnessed another situation that showed her more about Kyle's character. A passenger had lost his luggage, and it contained important medicine that he needed. The passenger was getting very upset and demanding that Kyle personally search for the bag. Kyle spent 2 hours helping the man. He called the baggage handling department, checked with security, and even went down to the cargo area himself to look for the missing bag. When they finally found it, Kyle personally delivered it to the passenger's gate. "Thank you so much," the passenger said. "I'm sorry I got so angry earlier." "No problem at all," Kyle replied. "I understand how stressful travel can be. I'm just glad we found your medicine." Lisa watched this whole interaction and was impressed by Kyle's patience and dedication. Despite all the problems he was dealing with, he still took time to help individual passengers with their problems. As the day ended, Lisa reflected on everything she had learned. Kyle Morrison wasn't just a strict rule follower. He was a man trying to hold together a complex operation with inadequate resources and support. His strict enforcement of rules wasn't about being mean to passengers. It was about maintaining safety and fairness when everything else was falling apart. The real problems weren't with Kyle or his team. The problems were with the corporate management that kept cutting costs without considering the consequences. Kyle was doing his best to serve passengers and protect his workers, but he was fighting an uphill battle against a system that didn't support him. Lisa realized that her initial anger about missing her flight had been misplaced. Kyle had actually been doing his job exactly as he should. The question now was what she could do to help him and improve the situation for everyone. Tomorrow was her last day before the next flight to Proxima Centauri. She decided to use that time to learn even more about the challenges facing the spaceport. She was beginning to form a plan that could help Kyle and his team, but she needed more information first. As she returned to her hotel that evening, Lisa felt both frustrated and excited. Frustrated by the problems she had discovered, but excited by the possibility of finally doing something to fix them. Lisa woke up on her third day to the sound of alarms coming from the spaceport. Through her hotel window, she could see emergency lights flashing and people running around the landing pads. Something big was happening. She quickly got dressed and hurried over to the terminal. The main screens were showing red warning messages and passengers were gathering in worried groups. Lisa found an information desk where a stressed-looking employee was trying to answer questions from dozens of people at once. "What's happening?" Lisa asked a woman standing nearby. "Solar storm," the woman replied. "They're saying all flights are canceled until it passes. Could be hours, could be days." Lisa had heard about solar storms before. They happened when the sun released large amounts of energy that could damage spacecraft electronics. It was dangerous for ships to travel during these storms, so everything had to be grounded until it was safe again. She made her way through the crowd toward Kyle's office. She wanted to see how he was handling this crisis. When she found him, he was surrounded by his team and talking rapidly into his headset. "How many passengers are we talking about?" Kyle was asking someone on the phone. "Okay, 5,000 people. And how many hotel rooms do we have available in the city?" Lisa watched as Kyle organized his response to the emergency. Despite the chaos around him, he seemed calm and focused. He was making lists on a whiteboard and giving clear instructions to his staff. "Amy, I need you to coordinate with all the hotels within 50 miles, Kyle said. "Find out how many rooms they have available and what their rates are. Tony, work with the local police to set up traffic control for the shuttle buses. Maria, contact the food courts and restaurants to see if they can stay open late and handle extra customers." "What about the elderly passengers and families with small children?" asked Amy. "Good point," Kyle said. "Set up a priority system. Elderly people, families with young kids, and anyone with medical needs get hotel rooms first. Everyone else will set up sleeping areas here in the terminal." Lisa was impressed by how quickly Kyle was thinking about the needs of different types of passengers. He wasn't just following some emergency plan from a book. He was adapting to the situation and trying to take care of people. Over the next few hours, Lisa watched Kyle and his team work non-stop to handle the crisis. They set up sleeping areas in unused gate areas, arranged for extra food and water, and made sure medical staff were available for anyone who needed help. But Lisa also saw how the corporate headquarters was making things harder for Kyle. Every decision he wanted to make had to be approved by someone in an office hundreds of miles away. When Kyle asked for permission to provide free meals to stranded passengers, he was told to wait for approval from the accounting department. "This is ridiculous," Kyle said to Tony after hanging up from another call with headquarters. "People are hungry and scared, and they want me to fill out forms before I can feed them." "What are you going to do?" Tony asked. Kyle looked around at all the stranded passengers, including many elderly people and families with crying children. "I'm going to order the food now and deal with the paperwork later. If they want to fire me for feeding hungry people, then so be it." Lisa watched Kyle use his personal credit card to order food for hundreds of people. She realized that this wasn't the first time he had done something like this. The maintenance workers had mentioned that he used his own money to help people when the company wouldn't approve expenses. As the day went on, the situation got more difficult. The solar storm was lasting longer than expected, and more flights kept getting canceled. By evening, there were over 8,000 stranded passengers. In the terminal, Kyle had been working for nearly 12 hours straight, but he showed no signs of stopping. Lisa saw him personally helping an elderly man find a place to rest, carrying bags for a family with 3 small children, and even cleaning up spilled food to keep the terminal looking decent. "Kyle, you need to take a break," Maria said around 10 o'clock that night. "You've been going nonstop since 6 this morning." "I'm fine," Kyle replied. "There's too much to do. At least eat something," Amy suggested. "You haven't had anything since breakfast." Kyle looked around at all the passengers who were still waiting for updates about their flights. "How can I eat when all these people are stuck here because of something beyond anyone's control? They didn't choose to be here. The least I can do is make sure they're as comfortable as possible." Lisa felt a deep respect for Kyle growing inside her. She had seen many managers in her career, but few who cared so much about the people they served. Most would have followed the minimum requirements and gone home, leaving the problem for the next shift. Around midnight, Lisa noticed Kyle sitting alone at his desk, looking exhausted. She decided to approach him. She had been thinking about what she could do to help, and she had an idea. "Excuse me, Mr. Morrison," she said. Kyle looked up, and it took him a moment to recognize her. "Oh, you're the passenger from the other day, the one who missed the Starwind Express. I'm sorry, but if you're looking for updates about tomorrow's flights, I don't have any new information yet." "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something else," Lisa said. "I've been watching how you've handled this emergency, and I'm very impressed. You've been working for 18 hours straight, and you're still putting passengers first." Kyle rubbed his tired eyes. "It's my job. These people are depending on us." "But it's more than just your job," Lisa said. "I've seen how you've been using your own money to help people, and how you've been personally taking care of passengers when you could have just delegated everything to your staff." "I don't understand what you're getting at," Kyle said. Lisa sat down in the chair across from his desk. "I've been here for 3 days, and I've learned a lot about how this place works. I know that the company has been cutting your budget and reducing your staff. I know that you've been fighting with headquarters to get better equipment and more workers. And I know that you've been working overtime almost every day to make up for the things the company won't provide." Kyle looked surprised. "How do you know all that?" "I've been talking to people," Lisa said. "Your maintenance workers, your gate agents, your security staff. They all say the same thing about you. They say you're the only manager who really cares about doing the job right." "I just try to do what's best for everyone," Kyle said quietly. "That's exactly my point," Lisa replied. "Most managers would have followed the minimum safety requirements and called it good, but you've been here all day and all night, personally making sure that thousands of stranded passengers have food, shelter, and someone who cares about their well-being." Kyle was quiet for a moment. "I've seen what happens when managers don't care. Passengers get treated badly, workers get overloaded, and eventually the whole system falls apart. I don't want that to happen here." "What would you do if you had more authority?" Lisa asked. "If you could make changes without having to get approval from headquarters for every decision." Kyle's eyes lit up a little. "I'd start by updating the computer systems and getting better equipment for maintenance. Then I'd hire more staff so people don't have to work such long hours. And I'd change the policies so we can help passengers more quickly when problems happen." "What about the corporate focus on profits?" Lisa asked. "Profits are important," Kyle said. "But you can't have sustainable profits if you're not taking care of your customers and your employees. Happy passengers come back and recommend you to others. Happy employees work harder and stay longer. In the long run, treating people well is actually better for business." Lisa smiled. This was exactly what she had hoped to hear. Kyle Morrison understood not just the immediate problems at the spaceport, but also the bigger picture of how to run a successful transportation business. "You know," Lisa said, "I think you have the right ideas about leadership. You just need the right opportunity to put them into practice." "Maybe someday," Kyle said. "But right now I need to focus on getting through this crisis. We still have thousands of people counting on us." Lisa stood up to leave. "Well, I want you to know that your hard work hasn't gone unnoticed. I think you're exactly the kind of person who should be in charge of important decisions." As she walked away, Kyle called after her. "I never got your name." Lisa turned back and smiled. "It's Lisa Barnes, and I have a feeling we'll be talking again soon." Kyle watched her leave, wondering what she had meant by that last comment. But he didn't have time to think about it. There were still thousands of passengers who needed his help, and the solar storm wasn't over yet. Little did he know that Lisa Barnes was already forming a plan that would change his life and the future of the entire spaceport. His actions during this crisis had shown her everything she needed to know about his character and his abilities. Now she just had to figure out the best way to put him in a position where he could make the changes that were so desperately needed. The next morning, Lisa packed her bags and prepared to finally catch her flight to Proxima Centauri. The solar storm had ended during the night and ships were beginning to take off again. But she had one more thing she wanted to do before leaving. She found Kyle in his office, looking tired but relieved that the crisis was over. He was finishing up paperwork from the emergency and coordinating with his staff to get all the delayed flights back on schedule. "Good morning, Mr. Morrison," Lisa said, knocking on his open door. "I hope you got some sleep last night." Kyle looked up and smiled. "Ms. Barnes, hello. I managed to get about 3 hours of sleep on the couch in the break room. How about you? Are you finally getting your flight today?" "Yes, the Starwind Express leaves in 2 hours," Lisa replied. "But I wanted to talk to you again before I left. Do you have a few minutes?" "Of course," Kyle said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "What can I do for you?" Lisa sat down and looked around Kyle's office. She could see certificates on the wall showing his training and achievements. There were also several thank you letters from passengers and photos of Kyle with his team at various company events. "I've been thinking about our conversation last night," Lisa began. "You told me about your ideas for improving this place, better equipment, more staff, updated policies. What would it take to make those changes happen?" Kyle leaned back in his chair. "Honestly, it would take someone with real authority in the company. Someone who could make decisions without having to ask permission for everything. But the people with that kind of power are all sitting in corporate offices far from here. They don't understand what it's really like to run a spaceport." "What if someone did understand?" Lisa asked. "What if there was a person in authority who had actually seen how things work on the ground level?" "That would be amazing," Kyle said. "But I don't think that person exists in our company. The executives are all about numbers and profits. They've never dealt with a crying child whose family is stranded, or an elderly person who needs help finding their gate, or workers who are exhausted from doing the jobs of 3 people. Lisa nodded. "You're right that most executives don't understand these things. But what if I told you that someone with real authority has been watching how you work for the past 3 days? Kyle looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Kyle, I need to tell you something," Lisa said carefully. "I haven't been completely honest with you about who I am." "I don't understand," Kyle replied, but Lisa could see a worried look starting to appear on his face. "My full name is Dr. Elizabeth Barnes," Lisa said. "Most people call me Lisa, which is why I've been using that name. But professionally, I'm known as Dr. Barnes." Kyle still looked confused. "Okay, but I don't see why that matters." Lisa took a deep breath. "Kyle, I'm the new director of the Interstellar Transportation Authority." Kyle's face went completely white. He stared at Lisa for several seconds without saying anything. Then he slowly put his head in his hands. "Oh no," Kyle said quietly. "I denied boarding to the director of the ITA. I'm going to be fired." "Kyle, look at me," Lisa said firmly. Kyle slowly raised his head. He looked like he was expecting the worst news of his life. "You're not going to be fired," Lisa continued. "In fact, it's the opposite. I want to offer you a promotion." Kyle blinked several times. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me correctly," Lisa said with a smile. "I want to promote you, but first let me explain what's been happening." Lisa told Kyle about how she had been traveling from Mars to Earth for her new job as ITA director. She explained that her flight delays had made her late for the Starwind Express, and how his refusal to bend the rules had initially made her angry. "But then I realized something," Lisa continued. "Being stuck here for 3 days gave me an opportunity I never would have had otherwise. I got to see how this spaceport really works. I got to watch you and your team in action. And I learned things that I never could have discovered in a normal inspection visit." Kyle listened in amazement as Lisa described everything she had observed. She told him about her conversations with Carlos and the maintenance workers, her time with the gate agents and security staff, and how she had watched him handle the solar storm emergency. Kyle, in my 20 years of working in transportation, I have never seen a manager who cares more about doing the right thing than you do, Lisa said. You follow safety rules not because you have to, but because you understand why they matter. You fight for your workers even when it makes your own job harder. And you put passengers first, even when it costs you personally. I was just doing my job, Kyle said quietly. No, you were doing much more than your job, Lisa replied. When you refused to let me board that ship 3 days ago, you were being fair. I was late, and the rules applied to everyone equally. When you used your own credit card to feed stranded passengers, you were being compassionate. When you worked 18 hours straight during the emergency, you were being dedicated. These aren't just job requirements, Kyle. These are the qualities of a real leader. Kyle was quiet for a moment. What kind of promotion are you talking about? I want to make you the regional director of operations for the entire Sol system, Lisa said. That means you'd be in charge of not just this spaceport, but all the major transportation hubs between Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. Kyle's eyes went wide. That's a huge responsibility. I don't know if I'm qualified for something like that. Kyle, you're more qualified than you think, Lisa said. You understand how transportation really works because you've done the job at every level. You care about safety because you've seen what happens when corners get cut. And you know how to lead people because you've earned the respect of everyone who works with you. But what about the corporate executives who have been making all the cost-cutting decisions? Kyle asked. Lisa smiled. That's the beautiful thing about my new position. The ITA has authority over all interstellar transportation companies. I can make changes that the corporate executives will have to follow, whether they like it or not. What kind of changes? Kyle asked. The kind you've been suggesting, Lisa replied. Updated equipment, better staffing levels, policies that put safety and passenger service ahead of short-term profits. Everything you've been fighting for, we can actually make happen. Kyle stood up and walked to his office window, looking out at the busy spaceport. This is all happening so fast. 3 days ago, I thought I had made a big mistake by refusing to help an important passenger. Now you're telling me that decision might have led to the biggest opportunity of my career. Kyle, can I ask you something? Lisa said. Of course. When you denied me boarding 3 days ago, if you had known who I was, would you have made a different decision? Kyle thought about this for a moment. Honestly, probably. I would have been tempted to make an exception because of your position. And that's exactly why I'm offering you this promotion, Lisa said. You made the right decision for the right reasons without knowing what the consequences might be. That's the kind of integrity we need in leadership positions. Kyle turned back from the window. What would happen to my team here if I took this job? That's another reason why you're the right person for this position, Lisa said. You're already thinking about the people who work with you. Amy, Tony, Maria, Carlos, and all the others would be eligible for promotions within the new system we're going to build. Good leaders create opportunities for the people around them. Just then, Kyle's phone buzzed with an urgent message. He looked at it and frowned. What is it? Lisa asked. Emergency call from the ITA headquarters, Kyle said. They need an immediate decision about rerouting ships from the Jupiter colonies due to some kind of technical problem. This kind of thing usually takes hours to get approved through all the corporate channels. Lisa stood up. Kyle, this is exactly the kind of situation where your experience and quick thinking would be valuable. What would you do? Kyle quickly pulled up information on his computer about the Jupiter routes and the technical problem that was being reported. Within 5 minutes, he had analyzed the situation and come up with a solution that would keep ships moving safely while the technical issues were being fixed. I would reroute the ships through the Mars hub and add extra stops at the asteroid mining stations, Kyle said. It would add 6 hours to the journey, but it would keep everyone safe and maintain the supply lines to the outer colonies. Lisa nodded and picked up Kyle's phone. She dialed a number and waited for someone to answer. This is Director Barnes, she said. I'm authorizing the Jupiter route changes as recommended by Regional Director Morrison. Implementation should begin immediately. Kyle stared at her. Did you just... Welcome to your new job, Kyle, Lisa said with a smile. I hope you're ready to start making the changes that are needed. Kyle sat down heavily in his chair. I can't believe this is really happening. Believe it, Lisa said. And Kyle, thank you for refusing to let me board that ship 3 days ago. It was the best thing that could have happened to both of us. As Lisa left Kyle's office to catch her flight, she felt more optimistic about the future of interstellar transportation than she had in years. She had found exactly the kind of person she needed to help build a better system. Someone who understood that the real measure of success wasn't just... 3 months later, Kyle Morrison stood in his new office on the 47th floor of the ITA headquarters building on Earth. Through the large windows, he could see spaceships taking off and landing at New Houston Spaceport in the distance. It felt strange to be looking down at the place where he had worked for so many years. His new title was Regional Director of Operations for the Sol system, and he was responsible for transportation between Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, and all the way out to the Jupiter colonies. It was a big job, but Kyle felt ready for the challenge. The changes had started happening almost immediately after Lisa Barnes revealed who she was. Within a week of Kyle's promotion, new funding had been approved for equipment upgrades at all major spaceports. Within a month, hiring had begun to bring staffing levels back to safe numbers. Kyle's first priority had been to take care of the people who had worked with him at New Houston Spaceport. Amy Foster had been promoted to operations manager, taking over Kyle's old job. Tony Rivera was now chief of security for the entire Earth region. Maria Santos had become assistant director of passenger services, and Carlos Ruiz was leading a new team that inspected and upgraded equipment at spaceports throughout the system. The computer systems that had been failing regularly were replaced with new models that could handle much more traffic. The maintenance equipment that Carlos and his team had been repairing with spare parts was replaced with brand new machines, and most importantly, the staffing levels were increased so that no one had to work 18-hour days anymore. But Kyle knew that the real test of his leadership wasn't just fixing the obvious problems. It was changing the way people thought about space travel and customer service. He had spent the last 3 months visiting spaceports throughout the Sol system, talking to workers and passengers, and implementing new policies. The changes weren't just about having better equipment or more staff. They were about treating every passenger with respect and dignity, no matter where they were going or how much money they had paid for their ticket. One of Kyle's first new policies was called the Human First Initiative. It meant that whenever there was a conflict between company profits and human needs would come first. This applied to everything from medical emergencies to family situations to simple courtesy. For example, if a passenger was late because of a genuine emergency, gate agents now had the authority to hold a ship for up to 10 minutes if it wouldn't cause safety problems or major delays for other passengers. If someone needed special assistance because of age or disability, there were now trained staff members whose only job was to help them. Kyle also created a new feedback system where passengers could easily report problems or suggest improvements. More importantly, every complaint was investigated within 24 hours, and passengers received personal responses explaining what would be done to fix the problem. The results had been better than anyone expected. Customer satisfaction scores had increased by 40%. Employee satisfaction had increased even more, as workers felt like they were finally being supported by management. And surprisingly, profits had actually gone up instead of down, because happy customers were more likely to choose ITA-regulated transport companies for future trips. Today, Kyle was preparing for a special meeting. Lisa Barnes was coming to review the progress that had been made and discuss plans for expanding the changes to other parts of human space. When Lisa arrived at Kyle's office, she was smiling. Kyle, I have to say the reports I've been getting are incredible. I knew you were the right person for this job, but you've exceeded even my expectations. Thank you, Kyle said. But I have to give credit to the people doing the actual work. All I did was remove the obstacles that were preventing them from doing their jobs properly. That's exactly what good leadership is, Lisa replied. Speaking of which, I have some news that I think you'll be interested in. She handed Kyle a tablet showing passenger satisfaction surveys from the past month. The numbers were even better than Kyle had expected. These are amazing, Kyle said, but I'm especially proud of this comment section. Listen to this one. I missed my connection due to a medical emergency, and instead of just rebooking me on the next flight, the staff helped me contact my family, arranged for overnight accommodations, and even made sure I had medication I needed. They treated me like a human being, not just a ticket number. That's the kind of service we want to be known for, Lisa said. But Kyle, I didn't just come here to congratulate you. I have a proposition. Kyle looked curious. What kind of proposition? The success of your changes here in the Sol system has gotten attention from the outer colonies, Lisa explained. The governments of the Alpha Centauri system, the Wolf 359 colonies, and even some of the independent settlements near Vega have asked if we can help them improve their transportation systems. That sounds like a great opportunity, Kyle said. What would it involve? It would mean expanding your role, Lisa said. Instead of just being regional director for the Sol system, you'd become director of interstellar operations. You'd be responsible for implementing human-centered transportation policies throughout all of human space. Kyle walked over to his window and looked out at the spaceport again. He thought about Amy, Tony, Maria, Carlos, and all the other people who had worked so hard to make these changes successful. What about my team here? Kyle asked. I don't want to abandon the people who helped make this work. That's another reason why you're perfect for this job, Lisa said. You're already thinking about how to take care of the people around you. Your team here would become the core of a new training program. They'd travel to other systems to teach other spaceport workers how to implement the same changes that worked so well here. So Amy would get to train other operations managers? Kyle asked. Exactly. And Tony would help set up security protocols that focus on helping passengers instead of just following rules. Maria would teach customer service techniques, and Carlos would lead equipment upgrade projects. Everyone would get to share their expertise while continuing to advance in their careers. Kyle nodded slowly. It would be a chance to help people throughout human space, not just in our local area. Kyle, can I tell you something? Lisa said. When I first became director of the ITA, I was worried about whether humans were really ready for the responsibility of managing transportation between so many different worlds. There are a lot of challenges when you're dealing with different gravity levels, different atmospheres, different cultures, and different needs. What changed your mind? Kyle asked. Meeting you and your team, Lisa replied. I realize that humans have something that's more valuable than the most advanced technology or the most efficient systems. We have the ability to care about each other. We can look at a problem and ask not just what's the most profitable solution, or what's the most technically correct solution, but what's the solution that best serves human needs. Kyle thought about the incident that had started everything. It's funny, he said. 3 months ago, I thought I was just following the rules when I wouldn't let you board that ship. I was worried about being fair to all passengers and maintaining safety procedures. And you were right to do that, Lisa said. But what I learned by watching you over those 3 days was that you weren't just following rules blindly. You were thinking about the reasons behind the rules and trying to balance different needs. That's what we need more of in human space. All right, Kyle said, turning back from the window. I'll take the job, but I want to make sure we do this right. I want to visit each system personally and learn about their specific challenges before we try to implement any changes. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Lisa said with a smile. As they worked out the details of Kyle's new role, both of them reflected on how much had changed since that morning when Kyle had denied boarding to a late passenger. What had seemed like a simple enforcement of company policy had led to the biggest transformation in interstellar transportation in decades. The changes weren't just about better equipment or more efficient procedures. They were about remembering that transportation systems existed to serve people, not the other way around. Every passenger was someone's family member, someone's friend, someone who mattered. Over the next year, Kyle and his expanded team would travel to dozens of star systems, working with local governments and transportation companies to implement human-centered policies. They would face new challenges and discover new solutions, but always with the same core principle: treat every person with dignity and respect. The Starwind Express route that had caused Kyle to deny Lisa boarding became a model for luxury space. Travel throughout human space. But more importantly, the same principles were applied to everyday transportation that ordinary people used to visit family, conduct business, or simply explore the galaxy. Years later, when historians wrote about the golden age of human space travel, they would trace its beginning to a simple incident at New Houston Spaceport. They would tell the story of how a strict airport manager's refusal to bend the rules led to the most important reforms in transportation history. But Kyle and Lisa knew the real lesson wasn't about rules or policies or corporate structures. It was about the uniquely human ability to learn from